And welcome back to News. My guest this morning, Democratic candidate for Illinois Governor Hardman and his running mate, Burnell. Before the break, we got talking about keeping jobs in the state of Illinois. Right. My question is it right to provide tax incentives to major corporations to keep them in the state or not?
Well, if you look at my website, I talked about providing tax incentives to corporations that have a track record in Illinois. Right. If you've been doing good business in Illinois for 10 or 15 years, yes, we should provide you with a tax incentive because we're trying to keep jobs in Illinois. By all means. So I definitely agree with that.
If you got a major corporation that says, hey, we're going to up and leave, you're saying it's worth giving them that tax break?
It's definitely worth giving them a tax break. And remember, the head tax is killing businesses in Illinois.
Okay. Right. Income tax in the state, of course, when it was increased, it was supposed to be temporary. Now, certainly there are many taxpayers who are wondering, is it really going to be temporary or not? Should it be?
What I'm looking at, as far as individuals, we may try to make some changes and reduce the taxes for individuals, but corporations, we may have to keep the tax there.
Okay, so are you saying that in itself should make up the difference, or do you think you need to do much more?
I think once we open up the state-owned casinos, that will offset a lot of the expenses. See, 5 state-owned casinos can bring in about $5 billion. And see, therefore, we can use that money to increase funding for education. We can use some of that money. As a matter of fact, we can hire 9,000 to 12,000 people with 5 new casinos as well.
What should the state of Illinois do to manage itself better?
Well, you need someone with a proven track record. You know, when I was working at Ceasefire, I dealt in the areas of conflict resolution. So it's too much infighting with the Democratic Party. We have to stop the practice of looking out for special interest groups. Number one, if you want to manage the things well here, we have to inform the people if something's going wrong in advance. Don't get me wrong. See, it's the time has to come where the elected officials will not try to balance the budget on the working class people anymore. And once we fix the economy, all ships will rise with the tide. But we can't play games with the people. We have to be straight up with the people, Alan. That's
and I would say this as well. When T.O. Hardman was with Ceasefire, this isn't, they're saying little known. He was the director of Ceasefire Illinois, meaning he's known all over the state. He raised $50 million for that program over a 10-year period. He hired over 300 ex-offenders. He managed a $10 million budget. This is not someone who hasn't proven himself. And not only that, he helped reduce violence in this state. This is a governor candidate like never before. We have never had a governor who has been in the trenches where guns were actually out and saved lives.
I have to ask you, and we've talked about the positives here of your past and your career. You're not with Ceasefire anymore, Tio.
No.
One of the reasons, as many people know, is that there was a domestic battery charge that was brought against you by your wife, and it was recanted and it was dropped.
Yes, sir.
How does that affect you? Does it damage your credibility?
Well, you know, everybody in the world may experience a relationship problem one time or another. All the charges were dropped on me, and I refuse to allow one situation to define my entire body of work. I've been on the ground working for years. People know me everywhere. So that's the only thing I can tell you about that. I have never been convicted of any crime in my life.
The people are, they don't want perfect people. That's the problem. Everybody's running around like they're perfect. I have the perfect life because I have money. I have the perfect life because corporations are supporting me. If you go behind some of the closed doors of some of these individuals that have a perfect image, your mouth would be on the floor. What we are running on is we're real people. We are non-traditional. We're the only candidates running, honest to God, the only candidates running who are not part of the mess that has been created of our state. We're the only ones not a part of the corruption going on in this state.
Let me hit a couple of these issues in the time we have left, too. Okay. Let me go to the handling of drug cases. There's been a lot of talk about who makes up our prison population in the state of Illinois. Wow. Okay. So tell me what you would do to change that. I'll start with whether marijuana itself should be legalized right out or not. We have medical marijuana, of course, coming on board here. But I mean marijuana in general. How would you handle drug offenses? What would you do to change that situation?
Well, I'm definitely in favor of decriminalizing, you know, low-level drug, you know, marijuana offenses, you know, small amounts of marijuana. And then when it comes down to the Illinois Department of Corrections, I'm all in favor of transparency. We have a lot of things taking place in the prisons, and the prisoners, their voices are not being heard. A lot of inhumane treatment taking place in IDOC. So we need to speak up for the people. So I plan to take a look at all the numbers and make the changes necessary. We have to allow nonviolent offenders, make sure they get a second chance out there soon, not later.
And we can cut the fat on that too, Governor, by these $10 drug cases in our courtrooms. You've got people being pulled into courtrooms for $10 drugs. That means you're paying a police officer, you're paying a sheriff, you're paying a judge, you're paying a state attorney, you're paying a public defender, you're paying corrections people to keep them for $10.
Gun laws. You got concealed carry, of course, coming on right now, and working through that. but should changes be made to existing gun laws or not?
I have a good answer for you. There's no data to back up the fact that legal gun owners are part of the gun violence problem in Illinois. I support concealed carry, and most people thought I would not support it because I used to work with ceasefire, but the data does not exist. So we support the Second Amendment all the way.
Right, absolutely.
You believe the existing laws are adequate that are on the books?
The existing laws are adequate, but we always have to make changes to laws as we move along to make sure there are no loopholes there, okay?
All right. Teal Hardman, Burnell Donald, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
You here this morning. Thank you very much for your points of views. Of course, running for governor and running for lieutenant governor on the Democratic Party platform. That's going to do it for News Views this morning. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Alan Kraszewski. We'll get back to the news desk now.
Thanks, Alan, as we take another live look.